Hello, hello. How's it going? Welcome. So I see that no one's camera is on. I'm wondering if that's a setting or if we're trying to do this as a hybrid kind of webinar class. So we did want people to turn on their videos if they're able to, if you're able to. Um, and you can maybe you have to request and we can approve, but it would be cool to see who's in the room. Hey Tracy, thanks for coming. Yay! Hello, Cindy. Peter's here. I'm just gonna yell out everyone's names as people figure out how to get the videos on. So if people can turn on your video, if you're okay with that, you can also turn it off after we start the presentation. Uh, Hello, Ernesto. Good to see you. So I'm curious where folks are calling in from. We can, Dino, can you open the chat? So even if people don't want to put on their videos, we can still have a sense. Hey, Ryan. Good to see you. All right. So if you can just put in the chat like where you're calling in from and if you have any professional background that you want that you think is relevant for us to know um, as we go into this presentation, feel free to share. If you have a favorite psychedelic, you can tell us that too. It's always my favorite question. What's your favorite psychedelic? I frame it in the class as what are you, and if it's not legal yet, the one that you're most excited to have legalized, because we're all above ground. Um, Malika, good to see you. Okay, so let's see. So Tracy, Washington. We have Ernesto from LA, um, Ryan in the Philadelphia region. Anyone else wants to let us know? Ontario, yay. We have Sarko, who's a graduate of our program. He said he was in Canada and they were selling all the psychedelics openly in the downtown area. And he was like, this is awesome. We shall move here. I'm like, uh-huh. Peter's calling in from New Hampshire. Awesome. Cool. So we thought it'd be fun to have faces when you do webinars. If anyone has ever taught classes versus webinars, webinars are hard because you don't know who you're talking at. So it can sometimes feel like you're like really you get no feedback. So it's easier actually to teach if you can see people. Natasha, hello. Um, so we're excited to see your faces and excited to bring you some of this content. We used to do a lot of free programming a couple years ago, and then we dropped off and felt like this would be good, not only to offer free content to folks, but also to help people that are trying to decide if they want to take our training, what it's like to learn from us. I think that's the most important thing is like, does it feel aligned? Does it feel like these people make any sense to me? So it can serve both purposes. Some people have already taken the class and know it's the best. So welcome to you guys too. Um, so we have someone from West Virginia, psychedelic enthusiast. Cool. Um, so let's see. One question I would have is, who's already taken some training program? Who's taken SoundMind? Who's looking for one and who's just here to listen, just so that I have a sense. Tab says I'm here in Philly and love shrooms. Great. I haven't heard shrooms in a while because we call them it's psilocybin, very medical, serious. I'm going to tell a very ridiculous tangential story. When I was 15, I went to a fish show, and my brother was 16 and was the driver because he was the only one who had a driver's license at that time. And my parents had all the kids that were going to this fish show sign a contract that said, I won't do drugs, and these are all the drugs I won't do. So we took that and we brought it to the fish show and we went through like, what are we not supposed to be doing? And my mom came to sort of see what the scene was. It was like one of the early days fish shows in Vermont, like big festival. No place for kids really, but my mom said she wanted to just see what was going on, check out how we were, and she said I kept hearing things and I couldn't figure out what I was hearing, and I kept hearing things, people saying like, ooh, ooh, and like, what is that? What is the noise people are saying? And she's like, and then I realized what they're saying is shrooms, shrooms. Who wants shrooms? She was like, we were like, yeah, we noticed. Early days of psychedelics. All right, so we have Adele here who's going to talk to us about trusting the journeyer. And we're going to start out with like a 3 minute, 3 to 5 minute grounding meditation that Diana will lead us through. We always do a meditation in class. I feel like it's really helpful. So you'll get, well, we can all ground together. You can turn off your camera if you want when we do that, or keep it on. Um, and yeah, I think we can start. Thanks everyone
Great.
for coming.
Awesome. Okay. So let's begin by exploring our position in this moment, the position of our bodies, and just taking a moment to adjust if we need to do that. Just finding a position that feels, a posture that feels comfortable. And we say we're going to ground because we're going to connect with our bodies. So let's begin by taking a deep breath, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. And let's do that again, inhaling and exhaling. And one more time, inhaling and exhaling. And now gently rest your attention on your breath. Just witness how your body is breathing in this moment. There is no need to control the breath. We are just witnessing. And allow this curiosity for yourself to expand and explore how is your body feeling in this moment. How does it feel to be yourself here and now? And just witness. And allow yourself to ground in this presence. Grounding yourself in this openness. And grounding yourself in this curiosity. And let's breathe together again 3 times, inhaling through the nose. And exhaling through the mouth. And let's do this again, breathing, inhaling. And exhaling. And one more time, inhale. And exhale. And keeping this sensation of presence, let's open our eyes and come back to the room.
Thank you. Awesome. Do you want to give just a brief bio of yourself, Diana, um, as we go into
Sure,
this?
sure, thank you. I'm Diana. I live in Costa Rica and I'm Costa Rican. And I've been working with SoundMind for a couple of years. I'm also a graduate from the program. Um, and I love this program. And this is the work of my heart also. Feel super happy to be part of this team. Um, I love music. Um, I'm also really interested in psychoanalysis and ceremony. I'm a student of this path. And if you enter the program, I'm going to be there supporting your learning process in different ways. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And most of you know me probably because I'm on everything on SoundMind's site, but I'm Dr. Hannah McLean Litt, and I am a psychoanalyst, a physician, a musician, a creative ADHDer. If you take the program, you get to hear all of my tangential ADHD stories, and then usually they come back to the topic eventually. Um, and yeah, I also love this program. I love the creativity that I was allowed to engage in to develop it. We've been teaching since 2019 in different iterations of this course. Some people were part of it when it was shorter, and then it kind of got longer and longer. So now it's 250 hours a year. And I've thought about making modules for people, but I think the more you learn, the more you realize there's a lot to learn. And so it's important to include as much as you can in these trainings. And I'm extremely excited to have Adele LaFrance here. And she is we used to have a different teacher every week, and then we started consolidating onto, I would say like there's 4 or 5 people that come many times to the class. And then we'll have different one-off topic experts. But Adele is one of those people that can talk about almost anything. And so sometimes we're like, we don't have anyone to teach about this. Adele can do it. So I'm really excited to hear a new lecture. But she is one of the favorite instructors of SoundMind. So many people come away from the training and they're like, Adele's amazing. This is so incredible. So it's been such a honor to be working with you so many years. And Adele and I met in the MAPS training in 2019, I think. 1918? It was 19?
I think it was 18.
18, yeah. And I came back from that training and I was like, oh, everyone wants to be a therapist, a psychedelic therapist, and there's really just nothing out there that gives you a comprehensive overview of all the different options in the space. So that's how SoundMind was born, and there really wasn't anything at that time. Um, I think there was a couple programs, well, one program that had a 10-week intro to psychedelics, and I think CIS at that time was just for academic and clinicians. And so I was like, what about we just open it to everyone who wants to learn this, including doctors and clinicians and unlicensed people, and really just was blown away by how interesting it is to teach for people of all different backgrounds and educational levels. And it has continued. Every year we iterate a little and add things. But Adele's been part of it for a very long time. And I'll let you give your bio for whatever you want people to know about you, and take it away. Thanks for coming.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. As always, it's always it's fun to be a part of your team and to teach as part of SoundMind. The more I teach, the more I refine my own thinking processes, my own emotional processes, my own spiritual processes. And so I'm very grateful to have those opportunities because it definitely helps me as well. It's one of those beautiful, like win-win situations. I guess what I could say about my bio is that I didn't go to Fish concerts and my parents didn't, you know, check out when I was doing at these concerts that I definitely was not going to. The first time I ever worked with or ingested a psychedelic substance was when I went to an ayahuasca retreat, so psychedelics were not a part of my life and by design. So my trajectory was kind of like surprising to me. Like every once in a while, I'll be like, wow, how did I get here from where I was? And in particular, related to the deep stigma and fears that I held relating to the use of consciousness altering substances. But actually, wasn't just a fear because, I witnessed friends in high school lose their mind and never come back to themselves. And I've actually kind of incorporated that thread of lived experiences through my work. So, for example, we published an article entitled The Good, the Bad, the Ugly of Ayahuasca, where we surveyed ceremony leaders and we asked them, about all possible risks, challenges, like ones that they'd experienced, but also ones that they thought were theoretical. And we published every single one, not the ones that were the most often endorsed, every single one. And so, especially now that there are corporate interests in psychedelic medicines moving forward, I think it's really, really important to balance the potential of these consciousness altering substances in terms of healing and growth with regards to individuals, systems, communities, and culturally with the risks and the dangers. And so my hope in the work that I do is to try to kind of bridge that gap. Like, I don't want to pretend that there aren't risks and challenges. I mean, I've seen enough of them and I've been involved in enough situations that were really serious or along the continuum of severity that I want to be like, okay, how can we avoid these things from happening again, as opposed to leaning on concepts like you got to trust life and it happens for a reason. Like that's just not who I am in this space. Um, in fact, I believe that that's a position of privilege to take, right? So you can say like, well, you got to trust life and everything happens for a reason. Say that to a person who's unhoused and who's experiencing, frequent abuse and life only gives you what you can handle. Like, I don't know about that. I know people who've ended their lives. And of course, there's a spiritual backdrop that I am working on integrating, within my sense of self, my understanding of this life, this reality, and also um, balancing both of those ideas. So that's who I am. I'm a psychologist by training, a scientist as well, but like a human just trying to figure out what the heck this all is and what I'm supposed to do. And for the most part, the messages that I'm getting, from inside of me and from the medicine work that I engage in is that have fun and leave the world a better place. So this is my attempt to do both tonight, actually. Have
Awesome.
fun. And yeah. So I'll just
Thank
start.
you.
Is that okay? Start.
Sounds great.
Okay. So trust the guide, trust the medicine, trust the process, trust the journeyer. Yes, you got to trust your guide. Yeah, you got to trust the medicine. Yeah, you have to trust the process. But I want to shift the conversation more towards supporting the journeyer to build trust in themselves in order to bring their wisdom to the table in terms of the experience. White, Western, European dominant culture, when it comes to healing paradigms, are characterized by an expert in the room who then tells the non-expert, the patient or the client, if you will, what they need and how they need it. And that was definitely permeated throughout my training, which was very much dominated by white, Western, European ideas and philosophies about how mental health issues develop and how we treat them, very individualistic as well. And so I had to do a lot of unlearning, and that a lot of that unlearning happened through guided processes of self-inquiry with anti-oppression consultants. A lot of that unlearning happened by engaging with Indigenous healers and traditions and wisdom. And that process is incomplete. I think one of the Indigenous teachers that I had said, "You graduate when you die." You know, I thought, yes, that's right. So according to that, I'm about grade 8 right now. So just know, this session today is being conducted by someone who in the span of life is about in grade 8. And when you think about the human race, in terms of how old we are as a human race, like we're all about SK, like senior kindergarten. So we're actually quite young when you think about it in those terms, although I can't think about those terms too much because I start to get existential anxiety. And so I'm going to just like roll it back to the here and now. But yeah, so I actually talked about that. The other thing is that so many of these substances are being used outside of their traditional context, which there are so many implications. So many implications. Shakruna, if you're interested, Shakruna does such a wonderful job of talking about, writing about the implications from various different angles and with representation of the groups who are responsible for holding these wisdom traditions, these technologies, if you will. And so I want to acknowledge, the Indigenous groups and traditions that have had most impact on me, my ideas, my way of working here in Canada and the US, and they include the Shipibo, the Lakota, and the Dene. This talk specifically will provide a practical roadmap for honoring the anxieties of the people we support. And I say anxieties in quotes because as a field, what I have been witnessing is that we tend to dismiss people's anxieties as pathology, as opposed to wisdom that might be cloaked by unhealed wounds or trauma, but the wisdom is still there. And so if we brush aside the anxieties, even the tiniest little one, which I'll talk about later, we actually engage in a process of furthering the disconnection between the individual and their instincts. And for me, one of the gifts of psychedelic medicines is that they promote embodiment, a coordination of spirit, of mind, of heart, of body, so that, and and other levels that I don't even know how to describe yet, so that we can function in a more coordinated manner. If you were to draw a picture of my body with emphasis on the knowledge sources that I use the most often, my head would be like the size of Mars, the planet, and my body would be little, and there might be a little flash of spirituality. And so I've worked so hard over the last 15 years for a rebalancing act, to really learn to listen to my body, to really learn what the word discernment means, and from a place of sensory information, as opposed to my thinking brain that was super late to the party, but really wants to be the star of the show all the time, And I'm like, okay, thanks, thinking brain. You really helped, actually. You really helped in lots of ways with evolution and with group processes, but like, whoa, I cannot hear what my body is trying to tell me. And that is where some of the deepest wisdom lies. And the reason why I want to really be kind of explicit about a process that any one of us can use, whether we're going to help people or not, is because I want to do what I can to create safer, more aligned psychedelic experiences for everyone involved. I have been involved in this field now formally for 11 years, which, is not that long compared to a lot of other people, but long for me in terms of like the continuum of my career. But it's been long enough to have met, spoken to, supported people who suffered greatly as a result of their engagement in psychedelic medicines, including becoming re-traumatized when a facilitator or a team thought they knew better about the setting, the dose, the kind of help they would benefit from most, including the philosophy of medicine-supported healing, what that looks like. And I have been one of those people. So I say this with humility, you know. I have hurt and harmed people. And what I am going to do with that is alchemize, turn that into wisdom, and then share it with anyone who'll listen, because I think that's what we have to do. Maya Angelou talks about when you know better, you do better. I mean, we're human after all. We learn from experience. We learn from trial and error even. And one of my mentors said to me, let's add a sentence. I'm sure Maya meant to add it. Or maybe she did add it and just didn't make the quote meme that goes around on Facebook, When you know better, do better, and then tell somebody. And so this is part of my responsibility, to know better, to do better, and then tell somebody. So if you have been involved in psychedelic spaces, I invite you to take a real honest look at your involvement in terms of your own personal involvement, but also what you've observed. Have there been instances where you have heard about or seen or experienced a guide harming someone, or offering blanket recommendations, or using tropes such as the medicine only gives you what you can handle? Trust that if it happened, it's because it was meant to be. I spoke recently with a person who experienced what they'd referred to as a trauma, and I 100% believe them, because they participated in a group medicine experience and everyone was given the same dose. And they had a feeling that that dose was not the right dose for them, but the structures were such, and their internal structures were such, that they weren't able to say, I think that's too much for me. And it was too much for them, And so when people say trust the medicine, I feel like we really have to underline the point of trust the medicine and the instincts coming together, not just trust the medicine. Because let's talk about that. Many people have taken too much medicine, 3 occasions I've been involved in providing support to someone who experienced a psychotic break post-medicine. You don't forget those experiences, as a support staff. You don't forget those. And each time, I do believe that if they would have had lower doses, there could have been a different outcome, but there's no way to prove that. And so then I want to err on the side of what could we have done to prevent this? Because then there's learning involved, and things become more trauma informed. Medicines have been used during war times to promote acts of war. So, trusting the medicine, some people call them non-specific amplifiers, but not of light and love, just non-specific amplifiers. And there's a reason why intention, mindset and setting is one of the principles that is emphasized. And I think that's because people have used psychedelics for very harmful reasons. People have experienced traumas as a result of medicine use. I'm one of those people. In my, lifetime of, not lifetime, but in the time that I have been working with medicines for my own healing and growth, I've had 2 traumatizing experiences, both of which required me to engage in EMDR, which is a trauma therapy, for almost 1 year before I came back to myself. I suffered from derealization for about 10 months, and thankfully, my training in psychology helped me to identify what was going on. And thankfully, I had access to a really good therapist that I could afford, and then I had the time to go see, because that was a really tough 10 months. And then people talk about trusting the process. Well, when I first started in medicine circles, no one talked about integration. Like, I think I wrote one of the first online articles about integration with Tanya Kaminen. It wasn't talked about. And one of my closest friends had a really destabilizing journey and reached out to the ceremony staff post weekend for support, and there was none to be had. And it didn't go well for her. And so I always tell her, like, I tell her story as often as I can, because these things happen. And then I already talked about the impact of privilege on this perspective. Like, I'm really careful about saying, trust this, trust that, trust this, because so much of that positioning, I think, is influenced by privilege. And so what I want to do instead is, what do you, journeyer, need in order to trust me? Because on any given day, I am not trustworthy. I took a 5-month break from taking medicine, and I didn't even realize I needed it. I did a journey of my own, and the medicine was like, you're not a safe person to hold space for people right now. Like, I had such a blind spot. And so then I took a break for 5 months, and really took care of myself. I was not a trustworthy person during that time. And so I want the journeyer to feel like, at any given moment before the medicine is ingested and during the experience post, like, feel with your body, am I safe right now? Am I a safe person for you right now? Am I a safe person for this topic right now? Early days when I had experiences, I would say, oh, I want to say something, but I'm afraid to say it. And I remember this one therapist was like, say it, it's your opportunity for a reenactment, and to, like, get it right this time in terms of the relationship. And I was like, okay. And then said it. And then I realized after, I needed to not say it. I needed to work through, the feelings around the say it or don't say it. I needed to wait until all of me felt safe, to say it or to do the thing. That was a huge, huge, huge lesson for me, that slowing down actually helps to speed up medicine work. And earlier we're saying, what's your favorite medicine? Like, I can't wait to the day where I don't need to take medicine anymore. Honestly, that's my position. It's hard. It's super hard work. It's often embarrassing. It's often extremely painful. It's often very disruptive to my life. When I see things and I'm like, oh gosh, I have to make this big change. And so, like, I can't wait to the day where I'm like, I don't need them anymore. I'm so connected to my wisdom. I'm so connected to my instinct. I finally made it. I finally arrived that where we're headed, with all this medicine use. So I have deep respect for the medicine. I'm so freaking grateful for everything these medicines have done for me and for my loved ones. And also, I can't wait till the day that I don't need them anymore. It's like chemotherapy, like you appreciate the chemotherapy, but I mean, maybe it's not the best analogy, but anyways, one of my biggest lessons learned in the last 11 years is preparation is the new integration. Because there was so much emphasis on integration, about 5 to 7 years ago that started. Integration, all the coaches, all the therapists, which is great. We needed them like a long time ago. Many of us did anyways. But now I'm like, no, it's preparation. That's the key. With strong preparation, there are reduced chances of unnecessary suffering, increased chances of meaningful challenges for which there is some degree of skill and confidence in meeting those challenges. And then less integration may be needed overall. And so I'm really thinking more about prep these days, for sure. So these are different areas that I talk about. Practical strategies to optimize set and setting in the preparation phase. I'm really only talking about the first two. I'll talk more about the first one just because we don't have a lot of time. But working with pre-session anxiety, theirs and yours. And I'm saying yours as if you were a facilitator or a guide, but it doesn't matter what their refers to or yours refers to. And if we have time, we'll talk about the others. Okay, so what do you already know about what set refers to? So people talk about set and setting in psychedelics. So set is a short form for mindset, okay? So what you already know, just either you learned it, you heard about it, or you feel it in your body, about how to cultivate an optional mindset prior to the ingestion of a consciousness-altering substance. It's only medicine if it's medicine. So just think about what do you already know. If you want to put in the chat, you're totally welcome to. You don't have to. Just what do you already know about how to cultivate an optimal mindset? Likewise, what do you already know about what setting refers to? How to cultivate an optional setting environment, in where you're going to take the medicine. So just take stock of what you've learned, what you've observed, what you feel in your bones. First thing you can do is create a checklist to share with participants some ideas that they can bounce off their instincts. Because they may not know, right? Especially if they're new to this work. And so I love the idea of checklists because checklists allow us to refine our access to our instincts. Like, oh yeah, this could be good for me. Oh no, I don't really care about that. Oh yeah, that could be good too. As opposed to me saying, Cindy, this is what I think you need. And this is what the psychedelic experts are saying. No. Let's find out what your inner expert is saying. Let's give you all kinds of options that people have found useful. And then you decide which ones feel good for you. That makes me feel excited inside. Now, let's do a little experience here. It's a two-part. Think about the next medicine experience you have planned for yourself, okay? Where you are going to be ingesting a legal consciousness altering substance, okay? Or think of a potential participant that you have in mind. Think about the next medicine experience. So ground in that experience, okay? And here, a part of you may be excited, maybe relieved. Yay, I'm gonna have this opportunity for healing. Oh my gosh, I've been struggling so much, or I'm really looking for answers about this particular issue. And I just really need my brain to be more coordinated online and for my spirit to have a say. I'm excited. Another part of you might be anxious or scared. let's say it's 98% excited and 2% anxious. Okay. Let's say it's that. How do you respond? Or how have you heard other people respond? Because it's easier to see problems in other people than it is to see in ourselves. Has anyone ever said, oh, well, that's normal. That's healthy anxiety. Or if it's sign of healthy respect. I mean, I have said that as a knee-jerk response many, many, many times over the years. Okay. And it's all true as well. But what if we're missing out on some pretty incredible wisdom within that 2% anxiety? And what if that wisdom could guide better preparation support? And so here's an experience that I want to invite you to do on your own, like right now. And we'll just do 3. Make a list of 3 anxieties about the upcoming sit, including any that you believe to be irrational, even very irrational. Okay. Uh, you know, under optimized time conditions, you would make as comprehensive list as you can. And maybe the people who are watching this video, maybe you might do that. You pause, and just write super comprehensive list. But for now, just jot down 2 or 3 anxieties about your next sit. And don't worry about if they're rational or irrational. So I'll just give you a minute to do that. Okay. Now go through each one as if they were parts of you or child parts, child selves, and treat them as if what they have to say is the most important thing to you. And ask them what they need and why. What they're feeling anxious about and why. And see if you can glean anything from that part, that 2% part. And now as a second round, if there was a subtitle for this exercise, it would be Beyond Reassurance or Trying to Convince. Generate concrete actions that could be taken to honor those parts. For example, I'm always worried that there's not going to be enough help. My biggest childhood wound was one of emotional neglect. And so when I take a consciousness altering substance, I'm terrified that I'm going to relive feeling extremely vulnerable or very afraid, and they're not enough help. And I remember early days when I started working with medicine in medicine circles, it was almost discouraged to ask for help. That's because they're really big circles. It was like, oh, ask the medicine for help, ask God, ask yourself. And then if you really, really, really need it, ask for help from a facilitator, 2 of them being available in a room of 24 people or something like that. And that happened to me recently when I went to Peru. I needed help. I was reliving something really, really primitive and painful. And I asked for help, and the facilitator kept saying, ask the plants. Okay, I'm going to leave right now. I have to go. Ask the plants. I was like, oh my God, there's only one helper in a room of 22 people. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And so I asked the plants, I'm like, can you help me? And the plant was like, yes, tell the facilitator you need human help right now. That the kind of help you need is of the human variety. And tell them the plant said so. I was like, oh my God, yeah, I feel so seen. And so that's what I did. I'm like, help. The plant said, I need human help right now. And almost like saying, like, I dare you to disagree with the plants. Like, that's what they said. And so now one of the things that I do is I always ask, how much help is there available? And I'm an experienced journeyer. I've attended many a retreat. And that's my primary question. And I used to feel like, oh, I can hold my own. And then the deeper I got into the well of my childhood wounds and my intergenerational wounds, the more I learned that, oh, every once in a while, even if I can hold my own most of the time, I can end up in a place where if there's not help available, I'm in trouble. And I have had those like white knuckle experiences of like, oh God, how long? Okay, about 90 minutes and I should be over this. And so if someone said to me like, oh, look, you survived and weren't you able to make medicine out of that experience? No, I bare knuckled it. I can tell you about some of those experiences where I bare knuckled it. It made me realize that I need help. And and that's normal and human and beautiful. And so, that's one of the practices that I recommend is to really take those anxieties seriously. But you'll see that some people will not want to go there because they may feel threatened that the journey might be at risk of being canceled, if they have anxieties. And so they might downplay or dismiss or not want to engage in the activity. And so that's a way of knowing like, okay, is there attachment to this date, to this time, to this dose? And if so, is that something that we do something about? Or is it something that we name and move on? And I don't know what the answer is to that question. But I think they're important ones to at least talk about, to shine a light on. Like we did this in the context of a training recently, and it was so great because one of the training participants were like, I did not like that one bit. I could feel it in my body. I didn't want to look at the part of me that didn't want to do it because I'm doing it. I'm like, yes, yes. But what does that do to us inside? And can we still proceed and honor those parts? And what if that 2% part is actually holding a key that needs to unlock, a journey? I don't know, but I really appreciate this new way of doing it for me anyways. So this is the kind of process that I would recommend when people you support are preparing for a journey, writing out all of the anxieties that they might have, wisdom cloaked in unhealed wounds potentially, or just wisdom, writing them all out to resist the temptation as a practitioner to examine those through the lens of a little anxiety is healthy and everything happens for a reason. And instead, use every single one of those concerns to develop an enhanced care protocol. Like one person told me that they were afraid that I might faint. What would I do? What would have happened in that situation? Well, first of all, I rarely sit for people solo because I have my own fear of something like that would have happened if something happens to the facilitator. And I did have an experience under the effect of a consciousness altering substance where my guide had a panic attack in front of me at the height of my effect. And so, and they were experienced and so on. And they would have been one of those people who said like, no, 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 nothing's going to happen. I don't say that. As part of my protocol, I say things happen. Unpredictable things happen. And we are going to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if they do happen, then we have a protocol. This is what happens. Okay. So we'll have this person on speed dial, this person you call, or we'll have a piece of paper that reminds you or something of that nature. One person recently was worried that they weren't going to be able to ask for help. And so we made posters of helpful strategies and put one on the ceiling and one on the other side of the room, because they're like, if I can't ask for help, at least I can get the help that we just worked on right now in the future in that moment, you know? And then it's like, okay, and I'll check on you, even if you're not saying anything, every 20 to 30 minutes, just in case inside you're being annihilated, even though it might look like you're having a blissful experience. So I guess what I want to highlight here is that, you know, some of the anxieties were irrational or unfounded, but didn't matter because we created care protocols that made the person feel way, way safer, which meant they were able to get more out of the experience. And just the process of going through it that way was regulating for the nervous system, you know, help them to kind of figure out if they trusted the process, if they could trust the medicine, if they could trust the guide. So the other piece I want to encourage people to do is after each sit to ask yourself, even if things don't go wrong, how can I improve upon my protocols in honor of this person and their experience? So for example, recently I sat for someone and I offered something and it just was not well received, you know? And I noticed my inclination to make it about them. And I'm like, no, 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 no. What was it about me? It could have been about them. It could have been about me. It could have been about some other fourth, seventh, eighth factor. But if I'm engaging in this process of self-reflection, then I'm continuing to sharpen my own instincts and my own capacities to create a psychologically safe or safer environment for the person I'm supporting. Now, here's another piece. Wow, tuning into your needs and boundaries using the same protocol. I encourage you to do this, you know, if you're a guide or if you plan to be a guide on your own. Make a list of all of your anxieties about the next sit that you expect, you know, that you'll guide, if you have one on the books especially, regarding the timing, the prep process, the medicine to be used, the dose, and related to your own self-care and need for possible boundaries. I had this thought the other day that I will have arrived in my own training, in my own personal growth processes related to my role as a guide. I will have arrived when I cancel a sit based on an instinct, but no context. You know, because right now I have an instinct, and this happened recently. I had an instinct about a sit, and I was like, "God, something's not feeling good about it. Something's not feeling good about it." So I talked to the person and, you know, just told them the truth, and that was hard. And then we worked it out. Okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, da, da, da. And we went ahead with it, but differently, you know. And I want to get to a place where if I have a clear feeling in my body, like this feels like a no, that I just say, okay, we have to put this on pause for now, and let's revisit. And maybe we set the same date, but we pause until, and I just don't know how that's going to be possible in a like in an environment where their financial interests. It's going to be so hard for people to say, I have an instinct that I can't back up with rationality because the source of wisdom isn't consistent with that mode of information processing, you know. And I don't know that we do not give enough credence to instinct on its own. Anyways, and then same, go through each one of your anxieties one by one as if they were parts of you or child selves and see what they need and why. And just like the other activity, we don't want to think about this process in the frame of just giving ourselves reassurance it's going to be fine and trying to convince ourselves to go forward. No. It's like, what actions do we need to take to honor those parts within ourselves as the guide? And I did feel early in my process as a guide, somehow I needed to be all together all the time. Like it was somehow like it would scare the person if I told them that I was having a bad day or that I was going through a rough thing. And I want to use the word like that was a very immature way of being, and not immature in a bad way, like immature as in like there are parts of a plant that are less mature, like a bud that's not bloomed yet, like that's an immature part of the plant, but it's not, there's no judgment here of badness, so I just felt like, okay, like that part of me just didn't bloom yet. The part of me that just really believes in and has the courage and has cultivated the conditions around me to be able to be authentic, even if the other person won't like what I have to say, including if it means setting a boundary, and setting a boundary about medicine and a sit that's coming up. And so thankfully, most of the time, you don't have to cancel it. But I'll never forget when I was about to facilitate a retreat and I did medicine the night before the retreat. And the message I got from the medicine was that I needed to go home and not facilitate this retreat abroad that people were flying in for. I knew at least a third of the participants who were coming because they felt safer because I was there. And I got the message the night before that I needed to go home, and for very good reasons. And I didn't do it. I stayed. I stayed for the people. And it was the wrong move. And I had some karma to clean up, that lasted quite a few years until I finally got the message. And I, and changed my actions. And so sometimes I'm like, do I really want to do this journey ahead of this retreat that I'm going to be doing? Because, oh my gosh, what a mess it'll be if I realize that there's an issue that I need to tend to that doesn't look easy or feel easy or whatever. So if any of you felt resistance to engaging in this process, I feel you. I feel you. And yeah, that's why I kind of don't know how it's going to work in medicalized settings. I just don't, that's the part where I'm not getting it. And maybe there will be ways to make it work, especially with a lot of the good people who are at the helm of some of these processes being developed. But personally, I really struggle with how's that going to work? And then, oh yeah, you'll know you'll have arrived when you can cancel a sit based on intuition. I'm so sorry. I don't feel comfortable proceeding on this date as planned. I have a strong instinct about it, and for your safety and mine, I have to cancel and reschedule. I can't wait till I can do that. That's when I'll really feel mature. I recommend this process as well for dose determination, like how much medicine, whether it's psilocybin or ketamine or ayahuasca, MDMA, so if you want to walk with me through this little activity, and let's open up the chat for this one. What have you learned or integrated from dominant culture regarding dose? What are your biases regarding dose? So people talk about heroic dose, 5 grams, eye shades, dark, silent, alone. And I feel like that definition of heroic dose is highly, highly influenced by white Western European models of individualistic ways of being. And yeah, there's a lot of people can say that they got a lot of great things out of it. So I'm not saying that's not a positive thing to do for yourself. But I am saying that I've heard from enough people that the concept of heroic dose has hurt or harmed them because they've integrated this belief that, higher is better, bigger is better. And sometimes you need big and sometimes you need little. It's like sandpaper, like Ram Dass talks about suffering being the sandpaper of our evolution, of our creation. Sometimes you need fine grain and sometimes you need heavier grain sandpaper. It just depends on what you're doing. Depends on the job. But it's important for us to kind of think about like, okay, what are our biases? Do I feel like I am less than if I take less? Or do I feel better than because I only need less? That's more where I fit. I'm like, oh, look at me. I don't need that much. And I have these big journeys. I'm awesome. And other people in my sphere will be like, I'm awesome. I took 5 grams. We're all awesome. People who take psychedelic medicines, they're awesome too. People who don't take psychedelic medicines, they're awesome too. Like we're all awesome. And so, on the day of the journey, I'll ask people like, get an idea of your dose, but don't think too much of it until the day of, because you can't really make a decision until the day of if you're really wanting to be guided by instinct. And so then on the day of, we do a body scan, we check in with all the different parts, like, what's your bias? What should you, what do you feel you should do? All right, let's ask your body. And I have a video that I show in the classes with SoundMind of a woman who flew from a different state, paid a lot of money to do their prep. They were doing this journey with me. And when we did the day of dose determination, they picked a dose that some people would consider a microdose, a subperceptual dose. And she was just like, I don't know, I just feel like, the whole process took a long time because she really was like a little bit brainwashed by like, it needs to be high, and I'm like, what if we just really trust your body here? And so she decided on, what is considered a very, very low dose. And my friends, she had a very strong psychedelic experience, full visuals, full body high, like needed to like really like it was she talked about it being the perfect dose, like it was strong but not overwhelming. And she talked about in the video that being one of the most healing aspects of the whole 3-session series that she engaged in, because it showed her that she could trust herself. And that forever people dismissed her because of her anxiety. And then she learned to dismiss herself because of her anxiety. But all along, there was wisdom embedded in that anxiety. And I talk about anxiety being wisdom cloaked with unhealed wounds. There's something wrong, but the alarm bells can be amplified by unhealed wounds sometimes, which means like I never want to dismiss anyone's feeling of something's not right. It might be amplified or not. I don't know. People new to the medicine work may have an easier time with this process. They might not be as attached to dose if they're new to like psychedelic medicine. They don't even know what's a working dose, what's not a working dose. So it's interesting that people who have been in it for kind of more time might have more attachments. And then I feel like, and then there's a process of maturation that happens and they're like, oh no, I'm not worried about what I'm doing versus what you're doing. I'm very happy with my body, what my body's asking me right now. And then you may also have an attachment to the dose as the facilitator. So are those in conscious awareness? Are any parts of you feeling discomfort with the dose? I tend to feel more uncomfortable with higher doses when I'm sitting for someone I've never sat before, even if they've done medicine before. So I've learned that I also that my needs also matter. And so if someone wants to have an experience facilitated by me, then I say, okay, this is what I'm comfortable with, this range. You get to decide with me and we can do this process, but this is my upper range. I don't feel comfortable going higher than that until I've experienced you myself. And wow, okay, what freedom that like it is a co-creation. And to make it a co-creation, as opposed to, I fully trust you to make your decision. I'm like, I want that to be true, but that's not my conceptualization of trust, right? Trust starts from within and then gets extended out. and trust is built. It's a process when it's not like a flash instinct. And to really allow ourselves as guides to have needs, and to have boundaries and to have limits. I think that's really cool. And so, just aware of the time, I want you to just think about what I've talked about so far. I was gonna say what we've talked about, but I've been the only one doing the talking. So, what I've talked about, what processes can you include in your protocol, whether you are here because you're interested in doing medicine work for yourself, or whether you are here because you're interested in facilitating other people. What can you integrate in your own moving forward with this? And like, what are the take-home messages for you? There's so much about this work that is unpredictable. In fact, part of preparation is letting people know that there is no way to fully prepare for some journeys. And so we do what we can to support people, especially people who have a history of trauma, to feel agency in the ways that are possible. Like, for example, there was a woman that I supported with ketamine, and she'd never worked with me before. She was working with another therapist. They invited me in, like as a guest facilitator, which was an honor. And she really wanted to break through relating to a sexual trauma that she experienced. And she wanted to up her dose. And so I came in for the like few minutes before the injection, and she wanted to up her dose. And I was like, well, why? She's like, I want to break through the trauma. I'm like, well, if you have strong defenses in place around it, we don't want to blow them up. We want to make sure that you have sufficient internal and external resources, so that we can show the defenses that they can organically come down, as opposed to putting a stick of dynamite in front of them. That makes sense. Like, defenses go up and down as we assess for psychological safety. And some of them, stay up a little longer and a little stronger, depending on what happened to us. But my philosophy is that we don't want to blow out defenses. I'd rather go like chip away, chip away, chip away, and then we can get there. Anyways, she wanted to go higher. I presented this other perspective, and I was like, let's just check in, really take our time. The process took about 15 to 17 minutes, which in a managed care environment is a long time. And she decided not to go up. She decided to stay with the same dose. And we have a video recording of this that we're allowed to use for educational purposes. And the wall came down. And the belief was the wall came down because the wall was respected and honored, and so the wall felt safe. And then she was able to re-experience that trauma from start to finish in a way that felt embodied and regulated and meaningful. And so I guess I'll just kind of start finishing off with saying any dose is a heroic dose for so many people. Women's Health Magazine did a little piece on my family because I drank ayahuasca with my parents. And what's not in the piece, but which I have permission to share, is that like, I was so scared that night. I was so scared. Like, all of the patterns were up. Every single one of them. All of my fears were up. Every single one of them. And I drank ayahuasca, but the bottom of the cup, like just enough that the bottom of the cup was covered. Nothing more. I drank it, and it just made me feel a little bit calm, and I fell asleep, and I slept the whole night. And to me, to this day, that's one of my most heroic doses. Drinking ayahuasca with my parents across the room from me, under the circumstances in which we found ourselves. And that tiny little dose and the ayahuasca nap is one of the ceremonies that I am like feeling the most heroic about. And so I want you to consider, like, how can you integrate that concept of heroic dose into your life, into your practice? And then finally, I believe that the facilitator, the guide, the friend, I mean, in Colorado, I do this training for people, not guides, like just people, because there's an understanding that in Colorado, which is really beautiful, that Not everyone's going to want someone in a white coat to be facilitating their psychedelic experience for them. You know, I think I've done a lot of volunteering over the years with unhoused people. And I would rather train you and your friend with skills and theory that you can use to reduce harm and optimize outcomes in working with these substances in a good way. So, you know, if I talk about facilitator, I don't necessarily mean like formal facilitator. But I do believe that whoever's holding the space can have a huge impact on how it goes, including optimizing the set and the setting. So what gets in the way of letting the journeyer lead? Sometimes we do. If we think that we know more than them, or we're not creative enough to create the conditions for them to be able to use their instincts. So recently I was helping someone prepare for a psychedelic journey. They've never done psychedelics in their life. They have no idea. And so then I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Okay, so I went online and found some descriptions of this is what people say, describe at this dose. This is what people describe at this dose. And then I'm like, okay, let's have them read some scientific articles. And then we can extrapolate the dose from what they read in the scientific articles, right? Because otherwise they're just like, you have to tell me. And I'm like, nope. We have to find a way to co-create this, even if it's just a little bit. And then as they gain experience, then they can feel more comfortable, you know, about that process of co-creation. Of course, you know, we take turns leading and following, but we're always both engaged. And then do we have an agenda? Do we have a rescue fantasy, for example? Or are we annoyed with how this person is treating someone in their life and we want them to get the wake-up call? And so we want them to take a big dose, you know? And when we dismiss or we don't take the time to tend to anxieties, hidden wisdom, cloaked wisdom, even minor ones, then we, you know, we do get in the way. And then finally, we get in the way when we can't admit, allow, or recognize that we don't know something. And frankly, in the sphere of psychedelic medicine, and Hannah said it, she said at the very beginning, the more you know, the more you realize how little we know. There's lots that we don't know about the timing of the journey, about the expected effects, about the setting, about the dose, about the content likely to arise, about how it could be helpful to our lives or not. You know, I grew up in a very conservative area when it comes to the perception of psychedelics. And when I first started, it was extremely difficult to talk about because I had no one to talk about what was going on, you know, because there was so much stigma. And then I started developing ideas about life and living that were very, very contra to what was happening all around me. And so it was like really, really challenging. And so actually, the access to social support is now one of my requirements if we're going to do work together. And if it's not there yet, what can we do to build it? And it doesn't have to be your family. It can be chosen family, or it could be virtual groups, etc. But I've learned a lot about the need for social support because you never know when you're going to have that journey that busts things up in a way that is, you know, very challenging. Now, thankfully, those don't happen all the time, you know, and so I want to remind you that part of my feeling of responsibility in the field is to bring attention to these problems, right? And so out of the hundreds of journeys that I've been a part of, you know, the problems have happened infrequently. But I don't want to think about it as a stats game, because then we reduce the respect for that one person. And I want that person's experience to matter just as much, not less, because it's infrequent, if that makes sense. And what I'm learning about trauma-informed care, including care for kids who are on the spectrum of autism, neurodivergence, what I'm learning is that, like, if we thought about kids who are neurodivergent and their needs in school settings, and we just made that the standard, I think everyone would do better, because it's so attuned to the nervous system and it's so attuned to overwhelm and it's so attuned to regulation. And that's kind of how I think about this. If we think about the most fragile person in terms of psychedelic risk and response, and what if we use that, how we would approach that situation as the standard to vary from? I think that could be really cool. Okay, so circling back, trust the guide, trust the medicine, trust the process. Sure, I don't know. But what I do know is that I want to cultivate trusting the journey, helping the journeyer to trust their instincts and trusting my own, and then meeting together in that space, right? Because my instincts matter too, and their instincts matter. And then let's put them together. What a powerhouse of a well of wisdom that will be. So final thoughts, everyone's healing trajectory is different. Your personal healing and growth practices, your training, your supervision are extremely important for those of you who are wanting to be, guides in all of this. SoundMind provides the framework for that. We are still very much in the infancy stages of understanding how people heal and grow with psychedelics. And so we are very, very wise to listen and carefully to those we support, even to the whispers of their most diminished anxieties, and to be able to say, I don't know, far more often. Like, to me, that's such a sign of maturity. Like, I don't know, but let's prepare for all the possibilities. All right. I don't remember when I started. I think
Thank you.
to an
This is
hour, but
wonderful.
do we have time for a few questions? And if not, that's totally fine too.
Yeah, I think we do. I think a couple things is if people ask questions and your video's on, you'll be in the recording. We are going to clip out earlier ones, like the people coming on. But if you do ask a question, your video's on, you will be in the recording. If you don't want to be in the video, you can just put a question in the chat. We're gonna try and end in 10 minutes, so I'll fly through some of the stuff about SoundMind's program, and if anyone has questions, like we're always here, but we will go through a few things, and that's optional, of course, to stay for. I want to say I love this presentation. It was amazing. They're all amazing, but this was really, really insightful. Curious from people that were here if it felt like it landed to like the right level of your experience, or if it felt like, whoa, there's a lot of words I didn't really know what we're referring to. No, I think it's great because I think some people are alumni, some people have taken other programs, some people have been doing facilitation forever, and some people are new. If it felt super new, I'd be curious to know. Um, and I would say I love that, like, the idea of canceling journeys based on intuition. And I feel like I've had that a couple times that I have gotten an intuition of like, no, 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 don't do it. But I've set a date or a person's coming on a retreat and it was always right. Like I shouldn't have done it, but I did it because I'm like, well, as a medical doctor, it's like you don't just cancel something for no reason. So I've tried to dig into things and like try to figure out like what is this intuition. If I can't find it, I'm like, well, we'll do it because it's
Yeah.
probably just not based on anything. But actually, it turns out later it was based on something. One of them was that the person hadn't told me their full story of their medical history, and I think I think in intuition world, I had an intuition that I wasn't getting if they weren't totally telling me the truth, and so but there was nothing I could pin it to. Another time, the person was actually a medical person, and they told me they had had heart problems, that they got stress tests and everything was clear. And then the morning of, I was like, I just have a weird feeling, and I called the cardiologist, and actually it wasn't clear. He's like, no, it's not clear on both fronts, like large vasculature, small vasculature, he should not be undergoing this at all. So I called that off because I was like, the report actually says you did not, this is not safe. And I found another way to do it based on like doing an infusion, sitting for him with an EKG on. And then another time it was like I didn't really feel safe with this person because they would take the medicine and then they would say sort of creepy things, and I didn't want to judge them for what they were doing in journey, so they didn't fully remember what they had said. But so I did a whole second journey, and I was like, that the intuition was this doesn't feel safe in an outpatient setting for me. So called off the third one. But just like really trust that. And I actually teach in the class that if people don't feel aligned with someone, I mean, if you don't feel like it's a good match and you're just meeting them, you can say, I don't think it's a great match for, a variety of reasons. It's harder when you've set a date. And so, but I think that that's so important to still trust intuition. But in psychoanalytic training, they do teach you to say, this is really looking at whether we would be a good fit together. And if for any reason it doesn't feel like it would be a good fit for me, then we won't continue. And it can be not a good fit for many reasons. Like the person could remind you of your sister and it's like a weird transference starting out. And that's not going to, you think it's not going to be helpful, but you don't have to tell the person that. You can just say, I don't think I'd be the best fit. And I think we should carry that into psychedelic work as well, that like this doesn't feel like a good fit and you can change your mind. People might be mad, but it's also like safety is important, intuition super important. So thank you for that, all of that. I'll remember you next time I cancel someone's journey. That's the next day. So you're like, I can't do this. And it's like, do it. If you feel like you should do it, do it. Any questions? We could take maybe one or two, and then I can go into a little bit of the
Yeah, I want
program,
them.
and then I'm also curious, people can write in the chat while we're asking questions about if maybe you attended the last one, you've already heard my spiel, maybe you've already taken a training program, but I'm curious who wants to hear about the program. And if you do, I'm also happy to stay past the half-hour mark if people are wanting to hear and ask questions about that. But let's get some Adele questions going. And if you could also put into the chat anything you think I should know about your needs around the program. And maybe there's no questions.
There you go. And off to you.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you. It's amazing. Look forward to the next lecture you do. I learn always so much. I love your stories. All right. Thank you, Adele. Okay, so I'm going to go through a little bit about the program. And I also we have like 4 minutes of people talking about the program as well, just because interactive is super key. All right. And if you want to ask questions in the chat, feel free. Diana can also answer them as I'm talking. Malika loved the program. Thank you for sharing that you loved it. We loved having you. So the next steps, if you've taken the shorter program and you want to take the longer program, you should talk about it because it has changed a lot since 2020. And it also depends on where you are, whether you want Colorado licensure, general licensure, if you want to just add to what you already know. So reach out to us about that. This is my bio. Let's go back to that. Hold on. Bloop. It doesn't want to tell you. Okay. So I studied Mandarin, international development as an undergrad at McGill. I love Canada. I tried to immigrate to Canada, but then I got a scholarship to the US. Came here because it's easier to get scholarships in the US if you're American. Ended up in Philly at Temple. Really loved Temple as well for speech pathology. Went to Brown Medical School, Harvard School of Public Health, neurology and occupational and environmental medicine at Penn. Still am in Philly, but I kind of split my time now between here and now this Colorado program. I'm going there quite a bit, and Peru. We have some stuff in Costa Rica, as Diana is there. So I'm kind of a nomad a little bit. We do run a medical clinic, ketamine assisted therapy clinic in Philly. I did a 5-year psychoanalytic training program, and that's where the psychodynamic curriculum comes from. And patient safety fellowship at the VA. I love VA hospitals. I love working with veterans. Our mission is to bring equity, ethics, and innovation to the psychedelic ecosystem. We've done a ton of free trainings. We've done a BIPOC program that was free for participants. We've written Trans Affirming Care Guide. It's also a free educational packet, and lots of other things that have to do with equity and ethics and innovation. We have a nonprofit. We're working on some Wachuma projects in Peru now, and really excited to continue this mission. So the class is a big part of the class is to train facilitators to have more people to offer really good psychedelic care to the world. And I think we do that quite well. This is a picture of the clinic in Philadelphia. We also run ketamine trainings here. Um, and it has been open for many years. We started the training program in 2019. We were the very first program that was a year long that also invited licensed and unlicensed people. They actually used our curriculum to then apply to get Oregon approved as a year-long training program, the psilocybin legalization efforts, and then that has been the template for Colorado. So we've played a big part in a lot of things that are going on. And now we are continuing to train people. So a lot of people end up doing either ketamine assisted psychotherapy work, integration coaching. Some people are in Oregon or Colorado and do this psilocybin there. There's international people we've trained as well. We are licensed to be a Colorado training. Um, we are currently not doing Oregon this coming year, although if you really want Oregon, talk to us because there's ways you can take our training program and still get licensed in Oregon, but you need to talk to us and we'll explain to you how to do that. We offer you teaching around innovative protocols. We've collected data on touch-informed consent, on self-compassion, lots of different protocols we've developed. We help you understand how to do them. We have a very robust intake and integration training, individualized treatment plans. We help you understand how to tailor your treatments to people. We teach ceremonial and medical models. Both are equally important. We also teach psychodynamic approaches. So like psychotherapy, medical model, ceremonial. We try to include everything. And we have a cohesive integrated training team. I'm very interested in how people learn and how you can create trajectories that allow for maximal learning. So we have the training is 250 hours. It's 14 months. 9 of the months are live. So Tuesdays, 7 to 9 Eastern are the live portion. And then Thursdays, 7 to 8 Eastern is the live. If you miss that, there's a Saturday makeup. You can miss it like 3 to 5 of those without making them up. So there is some flexibility there as well. And then we have this 10-week psychodynamic program that if you enroll, you can start that. And it is pre-recorded. We are also offering people that are considering the program but aren't sure yet, taking the first 3 weeks of the psychodynamic program without paying anything to just see if it feels like the type of learning you want to do. So if you're interested in that, you still have to be accepted to the program. So apply, get accepted, but we can start you right away, and then you really see what it feels like, how many hours you're putting in. These are some of our amazing teachers. We have the best teachers. I've tried out lots of different people over the years, and the people who are still in the program are like the fan favorites. So it's really incredible to get to work with these humans. Psychodynamic curriculum, again, you start whenever you start. Most people try and finish that before the September live start date. If you enroll after like in August or early September, you can also do the psychodynamic curriculum afterwards. No problem. And you learn all the techniques around non-directive therapy. So really feeling like you can understand the nuances of what does it mean to be non-directive, and then we apply that to psychedelics. And that this was added because people asked for it. So people who weren't therapists that took the program wanted more about like the psychotherapy training. So we do that. We're not making you a psychotherapist, but we're giving you a lot of the tools to understand um, the concepts and use them in your treatment. September to May is this live curriculum, and we have different guest speakers each week. I'm at every week, so I really help make sure that everyone is learning in a way that fits into the trajectory of the learning process. We have coursework from ceremonial and indigenous masters. Um, and we also have you practice intakes, medical considerations. You learn about scales, about how people diagnose depression. So you have an understanding of sort of both the ceremonial world, the intuition world, and also like the details of what it is to work in a model that a lot of people do have diagnoses, they're on medication, so really trying to navigate what it means to have people that may have a diverse background of diagnoses, difficulties, and really provide the best care. Again, September to May is the core curriculum, and you have study groups every Thursday, so same period of time. We offer different retreats. We have collaborations with 3 different or other organizations, and we also do some trainings ourselves. We are focused on. We've done psilocybin trainings in Costa Rica and Jamaica. We've done Wachuma in Peru, and we've done ketamine trainings in Oregon and in Philly. Oh, and I guess psilocybin in Oregon as well. So we're gonna start offering Colorado ones. It really, what you take for your practicum really depends on what you want to be practicing and whether you want a state level certification or not. You can still get your full SoundMind certification that says SoundMind that you graduated, you did your practicum, even if you don't want Colorado. So it's really up to you, and we will help you navigate that. Here's some international retreat pictures. The Bend, Oregon retreat. And we also have a consultation group for people who have already graduated either with us or another program to present patients and get more supervision. That will start in September. Reach out if this pertains to you or you're interested. If you do our program, then you can do the following year. That's optional. The tuition is $12,300. The summer discount that we're offering is $1,000. That goes through August. And then we do have some 30% scholarships available. Please let us know if cost is a barrier and you really want to take the program. And we have started making these available recently to increase the access of this particular year of training. We have offered many scholarships in the past. They're not always available, but they have become available. A lot of things make SoundMind unique. I think a lot of it is just like the way we teach, the people we bring in, how we integrate psychodynamic and ceremonial, the ethical foundation. I love teaching about cults and narcissism and psychedelics and informed consent and boundary violations and all these things that I think are so important. So that's scattered throughout the curriculum. And really helping you practice as well, like hands-on experience. If anyone has questions, I am happy to answer them. And please email us, admissions@soundmind.institute, if you have questions that weren't answered yet. If you are interested in applying and you haven't done so yet, please apply. Or you can email us too if you have like some questions that you need answered before you apply. But if you apply and then you can get to meet us through the interview process, and Lindsay is our admissions person, so you'll meet her. And I would just say start the psychodynamic curriculum, like apply, get accepted, start it, and see if it feels right to you. I think is the best way to really figure out if we're the right people to be teaching you. Yeah, I think that's it. What questions do you have? And if there are no questions, we do have, we can put on a 4-minute testimonial video so you can watch what people have to say. Totally optional to stay or not. If you need to go, then you're also on the website. And then I will just stick around for a couple minutes if there are any final questions. Does that sound good? Dino, can you take it away? I'm glad you appreciate it. Thank you. Seeing some in the
So
chat.
the SoundMind program was actually one of the best educations that I've ever received, which I think is a really compelling statement because I've been privileged to actually attend a lot of wonderful institutions that really drove hard in terms of the education. And so why I place SoundMind into a similar category is that SoundMind didn't just focus on instruction. It didn't simply say, this is what you do. Instead, it was rather truly an education that said, here's the space, here are all of the doors where you can continue learning. And I think that that was the most important part of the education, because there's so much that you can do in the psychedelic space. And it's very important to understand, well, what are you going to be best at? And what do you align with the strongest, so that you can piece it together in the most authentic way possible? And I think that that mindset is one that will really ensure that the work you're doing moving forward is going to be as beneficial for whom you're working with.
One of the things that attracted me to it was the component of the psychoanalytic, or the combination of the psychoanalytic and the spiritual. And that really spoke to me, because I've had a lot of background as a patient in analysis and someone who's read a lot of the literature. So that resonated, and then also the spiritual component. And the inclusiveness also is really important to me. I would absolutely recommend the course to people. It's just been a great experience, and in ways that I didn't expect. It's woven threads of my life together. My parents both died in the early part of the course, and the way that that was received and handled was great. I think it was really helpful to be in the program at the time that that all happened, and it's been difficult, but it's really been helpful to be working on this material as that was going on.
Yeah, for me, SoundMind was really just a space where I can dive deeper into something that I was interested in. And I mean, that's why we go to school and why we continue education. And I think the biggest thing that I was looking for in a program was a place where I felt safe. When I feel safe, then people around me will feel safe. And we can go a little bit deeper in the medicine and in the education. So SoundMind had an in-depth program where it was not just a week-long intensive or a weekend away retreat, but it was going into multiple different avenues that are in conjunction with medicine. And that, to me, was really what drew me in.
Thank you to these testimonial people. That was after the retreat in Peru. It's like so beautiful in the background. All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. Diana, do you have any final words?
No, I just want to say thank you, and just a reminder that this program is not only about what you learn, but it is also about who you become. Yeah,
I love that.
say that.
Perfect. We can put that on a t-shirt. All right, thank you everyone. So we have another presentation next week. We're going to learn about what's happening in Colorado and New Mexico. We've added that here from Jake and Patrick. And we may have other guests as well, but we hope to see you there. Same time next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending. Have a good night.